What is the first thing that comes to mind when you think of your dark side? For many of us, it's a scary and dangerous place full of anger, hatred, and negativity. But what is the dark side of our personality exactly? In essence, it's our unconscious or hidden self, the part of us that we don't want to see or confront. This part is known in psychology as the shadow self, and it includes all of our repressed emotions, desires, and impulses. And while it can be scary and destructive, it also has a lot of power and potential. If we learn to understand and accept our shadow self, we can access a much deeper level of inner peace and wholeness. So, how do we go about doing this? In this video, I'll be sharing some tips on how to identify and integrate your shadow self. Hi, I'm Felipe from Mindowl. Here we talk about how meditation, psychology, philosophy, and breathwork can help you live a happier and more peaceful life. What is the shadow self? The shadow self is a part of ourselves that we often try to ignore or suppress. It's the side of ourselves that manifests as our dark thoughts, feelings, and desires. It can be triggered by other people's words or actions, which can cause us to act defensively or emotionally. Sometimes we don't even know what is tucked away inside the shadow self, because it's been pushed so far away from us that we have forgotten about it. This lack of awareness may be part of the reason why these aspects of ourselves can be so destructive. You may start to feel out of control or even scared when these repressed emotions and impulses bubbling to the surface. In these moments, you might wonder, why are you feeling this way? When we talk about the shadow self, it's important to mention Carl Jung. He was one of the first people to talk about this concept, and he believed that it plays a very important role in our psychological development. Jung believed that the shadow is a part of our psyche that we need to integrate in order to become whole. He described it as an unconscious repository of all the rejected aspects of ourselves. This includes our fears, doubts, anger, impulses. It's what we project onto others, and it's also what we try to hide from the world. Using Jung's work as an inspiration, we can divide parts of our personality into three main categories: the persona, the ego, and the shadow. The persona is the mask that we put on for the world. It's the image that we want others to see. The ego is our sense of self, and it's what we identify with. It's the part of us that feels rational and in control. And the shadow is the part of us that is hidden from our view. It's the dark side of our psyche that we don't want to acknowledge or deal with. Unless we learn to integrate these three different aspects of ourselves, we'll continue to feel fragmented and incomplete. Jung's famous quote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you'll call it fate." It's a great reminder of the importance of integrating our shadow self. Until we become aware of these rejected aspects of ourselves, they'll continue to have a powerful influence over our lives. How the shadow self is born. As we grow up, we learn to adapt to the external world. We put away all of our unwanted parts and try to become what we think is acceptable. This is usually done in an effort to fit in and be loved, but as Jung points out, it's not possible to completely get rid of our shadow. It's always going to be there, lurking in the background. The shadow is born from our attempts to feel accepted and loved by the people around us. We try to hide our flaws and weaknesses and instead present a false image of ourselves. But this comes at a cost. We have to constantly monitor our behavior to make sure that we don't slip up. We then start to lose touch with the more authentic part of ourselves, and we then become someone that we are not. Why is suppressing the shadow self harmful? When we suppress the shadow self, we are essentially denying a part of ourselves. This can be harmful because it leads to fragmentation and internal conflict. We become disconnected from our authentic self, and this can cause a lot of psychological problems. One of the known effects of suppressing the shadow is called psychological projection. This is when we unconsciously project our shadows into others, acting as though they possess the qualities that we consider to be negative in ourselves. And of course, it can lead to a lot of problems in our relationships because we'll be pointing out certain traits and criticizing undesirable qualities that others have. But often we don't realize that we hold these qualities ourselves. We are just not willing to confront it. Another issue with suppressing the shadow is that it can lead to you living an inauthentic life. You end up pretending to be someone that you are not, and this can be very tiring and stressful. And it can also cause you to make choices that are not aligned with your complete self. How to spot your shadow self? To spot your shadow self, you need to pay detailed attention to your behavior and interactions with others, as they can be very subtle and often will go unnoticed. In general, if your behavior differs from who you perceive yourself to be, then you might be dealing with your shadow self. For example, if you consider yourself to be a kind and compassionate person, but find yourself feeling angry or resentful towards someone, then this could be a sign that your shadow self is active. Other signs include feeling ashamed or embarrassed, having feelings of envy or resentment, or being overly critical to others. Why does integrating your shadow self help you to grow? When you integrate your shadow self, you are able to live more consciously and authentically. You learn to face the darker aspects of yourself head-on and work through them rather than repressing them or ignoring them. This leads to a more whole and integrated sense of self that is better able to cope with challenges that life may throw at you. Integrating your shadow self also helps you to develop a more realistic perspective on the world around you. You come to see that everyone has their own shadows and that there is no such thing as a perfect person. You learn to accept yourself and others for what they are. This can lead to greater compassion and understanding for others, as well for yourself. What is shadow work? The process of working with the shadow self is called shadow work. It's a topic that deserves its own video, but in short, shadow work is the process of exploring your shadow and integrating it into your life. It involves bringing emotions, beliefs, and behaviors that have been hidden or repressed into your conscious awareness. Then you work through them one at a time, showing acceptance, understanding, and attempting not to judge yourself. The aim of shadow work is not to get rid of the shadow, but learn to live with it in a more conscious way. If you are interested in learning more about shadow work, what it involves, how to do it, I suggest that you check our video on shadow work. The shadow is an important part of our psyche, and it's something that we should all learn to accept and work with. Acknowledging and integrating our shadow self can be challenging because it means facing the darker aspects of our personalities and coming to terms with things we'd rather not see. However, it's an important process that leads to greater psychological and emotional health and better relationships with others. Remember to show compassion and understanding for yourself as you work through your shadow. And if you feel as though this process is too much for you to handle on your own, make sure to seek out the help of an expert. I hope that by watching this video you have a better understanding of the shadow self and why it's important to integrate and come to terms with all aspects of our character. If you found it helpful, please like, share and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to check the suggested videos for more great content on meditation, psychology, and how to live a more fulfilling life. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.